What's up guys, hope you're having a good day. In this video we're going to be breaking down all of the main card fights from UFC Fight Night Makhachev versus Green. We're going to be taking a deep dive in each of these matchups from a betting perspective, and hopefully you'll be able to use the information in this video to make better betting decisions and maybe even earn some extra cash. But as ever, this is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not telling you what to do. It's very important that you do your own research and gamble responsibly. Having said that, have put a lot of time into researching these fights. I do this for a living, make a living betting on MMA, and I have done for a long time now. So the information that I'm going to be sharing with you in this video is coming from a good place. Put a lot of work into it, but as always, do your own research to kind of verify the stuff I'm sharing with you. But I do really hope you find this video useful. If you'd like to watch breakdown videos for all the other fights on this card, head on over to my website MMABettingTips.com, where I'll break down all the prelim fights on there. There's a link to that in the description below. I'd like to apologize that this video has come out later than usual. This week I've been really distracted by everything that's going on in Ukraine at the moment. It's pretty tough to take, man. You know what I mean? It's pretty sickening what's going on. It's horrible to see, and it's very difficult to focus on MMA fights, something as trivial as a sport, when you know people's lives are falling apart in Ukraine. You know what I mean? It's pretty brutal. So I mean, saying that I haven't been focused on MMA this week is probably no. It's not the appropriate thing for me to say. It's not accurate. When I say that I haven't been focused on MMA or as focused on MMA, it's not like I'm putting any less time or effort into researching these fights. I'm just finding it difficult to pull myself away from looking into all the stuff going on in Ukraine at the moment and focus on actually sitting down and researching these fights. It's taken me a little bit longer to get through this card than I would have liked, or than I usually would. That's why this video is a bit late. But yeah, it's kind of difficult to... It puts things into perspective, right? What's going on in Ukraine at the moment definitely puts things into perspective. You know, I take MMA very seriously. I bet on MMA for a living, and yeah, when all of a sudden, you know, countries are being invaded, you know, westernized, civilized, sovereign nations are being invaded, definitely puts things into perspective and makes you realize how actually insignificant it is. You know, these things like MMA that we put so much weight and emphasis on, they're really insignificant when you take into consideration what the people of Ukraine are dealing with right now. So sorry the video is a bit late. Sure, I'll get my head back in the shed. We'll be back on schedule for next week. But yes, yeah, thrown me off this week, man, and it's been a big distraction. But I promise you, put just as much time and effort into researching these fights as I always do. It's just been a little bit more difficult for me to drag myself away from the news cycle and focus on UFC this week. But we have looked into each of these main card fights in a lot of depth, all the prelim fights in a lot of depth as well. And so let me share with you what I've been learning about how all these guys match up on this main card. So we'll start off by talking about the main event between Bobby Green and Islam Makhachev. So if we start off by taking a look at the odds, no surprise to anyone that Makhachev is an absolutely massive favourite. He is currently around an average of 1.11, which is minus 909 for an implied probability of 90%. And if we take a look at the odds on Bobby Green, he's currently around an average of 7.0, which is plus 600 for an implied probability of 14%. So, whenever you've got a fighter in this odds range, Makhachev's odds range, which carry an implied probability of 90%, it's kind of impossible to bet them, because what these odds are telling you is that you have to give them a better than 90% chance of winning in order to get any value there. And in a sport like MMA, that's pretty much impossible to do. If you think about all the ways that fighters can lose, you know, maybe Makhachev gets disqualified because something crazy happens in the fight. Maybe Bobby Green catches him with like a funky glancing shot that cuts him really bad, and the fight gets stopped by the doctor, even if Makhachev's fine to continue. The bad cut leads to a doctor stoppage. Makhachev could get flash KO'd. Maybe he throws a punch and breaks his hand, or throws a kick and breaks his leg, Chris Weidman or Anderson Silva style. There are lots of ways that a fighter can lose, even if they haven't necessarily lost fair and square by not being better than their opponent, right? MMA is a chaotic sport. So to give a fighter a better than 90% chance of winning in MMA is very, very difficult. So no matter how much I love Makhachev, no matter how likely that is that I think he's going to win, fighters in this odds range are almost always off the table for me. And so breakdowns like this a lot of the time will focus on whether or not there's enough value in the underdog to take a shot on them, because far easier to find value on a guy like Bobby Green that carries an implied probability of 14% than it is on a guy like Makhachev that carries an implied probability of 90%. So a lot of this breakdown is going to be focusing on areas that Bobby Green could potentially cause Makhachev problems and how likely it is that Bobby Green is going to make this competitive, because realistically, whenever you see a guy in the odds range that Makhachev is in, clearly he's got some pretty big advantages over his opponents. If he didn't, he wouldn't be this big of a favourite. But before we go into exploring things that I think Bobby Green can do well in this fight to make Makhachev's life a little bit difficult, I want to make it very clear that I think Islam Makhachev's absolutely brilliant. I think he's got all the potential to be the greatest fighter of all time up until this point in time, right? Khabib probably holds the current crown. I think Makhachev is going to turn out to be better than Khabib. He might not be better than Khabib now, but for how good he is at just 30 years old, I think Makhachev has got the potential to be better than Khabib and the greatest fighter of all time. There's no doubt in my mind. The reason why I think Makhachev has the potential to be better than Khabib is because he's a much more well-rounded fighter. He moves a lot better than Khabib on the feet. He's a lot more elusive. He's a lot more technical. So it's a much more diverse range of strikes. Makhachev's just the more complete fighter for me, where he's got that crushing physicality with his grappling that Khabib had, but he's also got the striking to go with it. Makhachev, very, very high-level striker. On top of that, he's got the gas tank to relentlessly attack his opponents with takedowns and grappling for however long he needs to. We've never seen Makhachev get tired. And at times in Khabib's career, you know, in the Al Iaquinta fight in particular, we have seen Khabib slow down a little bit as fights wear on. Makhachev just keeps pushing. The guy's relentless. And on top of that, you know, tough, great chin, good fight IQ, the total package. So I am so high on Makhachev. If there was like God or Allah or fucking Sauron from Lord of the Rings, someone that had infinite wisdom that could see into the future, and they were the all-seeing eye, and they said to me, Chris, there is one guy on the UFC roster right now that will become the greatest fighter of all time. We've looked into the future. We can confirm there's one guy on the roster right now that is going to be the greatest of all time. Your life depends on picking who that man is. Give me a name. Your life depends on it. Who's going to become the greatest of all time? I would have to say Islam Makhachev. Guys like Chimaev, they're great, but there's still so much we don't know about Chimaev. Don't know anything about his gas tank. Don't know anything about his chin. Don't know a lot about his striking. Don't know how Chimaev is going to react when put in bad positions, or when he faces someone that will resist his takedowns for the first time. We don't know how Chimaev might bounce back from a loss. We've seen how Makhachev reacts when he bounces back from a loss. The answer is absolutely fantastically well. And so very high on Chimaev as well, but Makhachev, the total package for me. So I'm super high on this guy, and I do think he gives Bobby Green absolute hell this weekend, and I do think that he wins. However, if you go through all the guys in the top 10, top 15 of the UFC's lightweight division, and you say to me, name one dude on the top 10, top 15 of the UFC's lightweight division that could cause a guy like Islam Makhachev big problems, Bobby Green's at the top of my list. Forget about Charles Oliveira, forget about Justin Gaethje, forget about Dustin Poirier, forget about Michael Chandler, forget about all these guys at the top of the lightweight division. Bobby Green, his entire career, has been the kind of guy that fights to the level of his opponent. So what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is, GSP famously said that fighting is 90% mental. And there's no better example of this than Bobby Green. Because throughout his career, he's been ridiculously inconsistent. And it's all because of his decision making, his motivation, his fight IQ. Bobby Green is the kind of guy that could fight Hannah Cyphers and lose a split decision. He's also the kind of guy that could fight Charles Oliveira and win a decision. For whatever reason, this guy just seems to fight at the level of his opponent. What I'm trying to say by that is, it doesn't matter who you throw in front of Bobby Green, he will almost always find a way to make it competitive. Because he's elite at everything. He's very good everywhere, so he's good enough to hold his own against most guys in the lightweight division. But for whatever reason, he's got that mental block, that self-sabotage within him, which means he always tends to make fights closer than they need to be. And his record tells that story. If you look at his record, look at how many split decisions he's been involved in. You know, there's one there, and obviously a lot of his recent fights, you know, dating back to 2018, they haven't gone to a split decision, but they've been extremely close. You look at like the Fiziev fight, it was extremely close, very, very, very close, and some of the others were close as well. So Bobby Green is the kind of guy that, if he shows up and performs to his full potential, I think there's a lot of things he can do to cause Makhachev trouble. Because Bobby Green started life as a wrestler. He's got a base in wrestling. He is primarily a grappler. But we all know him as like this crazy striker that likes to march forward with a heavy boxing style and showboat and screw around and try to throw his opponents off their game with his gamesmanship. But one of the things that allows Bobby Green to fight with that style, where he comes forward very aggressively, Diaz style, is because he's not worried about being taken down. Because with his base in wrestling, he's very difficult to take down and very difficult to hold down. Now, everything I say in relation to Bobby Green needs to have an asterisk next to it, because, again, like I said earlier in this breakdown, Bobby Green's very inconsistent. So at times, he can show up and look outstanding in certain areas, and at other times just not be feeling it that night and not really perform too well. A good example of this is his fight against Nasrat Haqparast. So at the beginning of these breakdown videos, I always say do your own research, and if you're interested in diving into this fight in a little bit more depth, I'd recommend that you go and watch Bobby Green's fights against Nasrat Haqparast and Rafael Fiziev, and then go and watch his fight against Thiago Moises, and you will see two completely different human beings. I think we can all agree, if we're familiar with, you know, the styles and the skills of these fighters, that Nasrat Haqparast and Rafael Fiziev are two far better strikers than Thiago Moises. Moises doesn't really have much boxing, he's got a kick-based style of striking, and his base is in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, whereas Fiziev, Haqparast have a base in striking, they're very, very skilled. Bobby Green did really well against Haqparast, did pretty well against Fiziev, who I consider to be one of the best strikers in the lightweight division, and yet against Moises got totally outstruck and totally outclassed on the feet. Those three fights, if you go and watch them, completely summarise why Bobby Green is a very difficult fighter to predict, because you never know what you're going to get from him from one fight to the next. He's so inconsistent. But if he shows up on Saturday night and performs to his absolute best, I think he can make life difficult for Makhachev, because he's not easy to take down, and he's very difficult to hold down. He's very scrambly. He's very good at working his way back up to his feet when he does get taken down. And when he's allowed to stand and strike, he's very elusive, very difficult to hit. Good boxing. Now, the one area where this fight will be difficult for Bobby Green on the feet is that Islam Makhachev has very good footwork and movement. This is one of the areas which I think makes him better than Khabib. Makhachev's one of these guys that doesn't stand in front of you in kickboxing range and get into a boxing match. He likes to be all the way outside of a range where he can be hit, or all the way inside, either blitzing you or working for takedowns. Historically, this style has frustrated Bobby Green, because Bobby Green's got a style heavily steeped in boxing. He wants to stand in front of you in a phone booth where he can use his head movement to roll with the punches and use his superior boxing to chip away at you and outstrike you. Bobby Green has historically struggled against guys that don't play that game. Guys that will look to avoid engaging, will look to counter-strike, will look to circle away from him when he comes forward and pressures. And this is why he did so well against Haqparast and Fiziev, because if we think about Haqparast and Fiziev's styles, what do they like to do? What range do they like to fight in? Well, both Fiziev and Haqparast also like to stand right in front of their opponents. And so I do think the movement of Makhachev, that style where he's all the way out or all the way in, is likely to cause Bobby some trouble. But Bobby can deal with it. Bobby's got the skills to deal with it. Bobby has got the ability to stay patient and continue to come forward and pressure and chip away at Makhachev. Where Bobby Green's fallen into trouble in the past is that he gets frustrated. And when guys refuse to stand in front of him and exchange, he gets frustrated and he starts to come forward, showboating, trash talking, hands down, allowing him to punch him in the face just to kind of prove he can slip the shots and roll with the shots, and they're not hurting him. But when he starts to do that, we know he lets rounds slip away, because even if the shots aren't hurting him, when he plays these games and starts to showboat, he quite often doesn't land anything himself. And we've all seen it. He'll eat a clean hard shot and he'll go, didn't hurt, and he'll do this to the judges as if to say it didn't hurt. But he's still allowing his opponents to score points when he does that, by allowing his opponents to hit him. So I do think Makhachev is likely to frustrate Bobby Green on the feet. But skill for skill, Bobby Green's not easy to take down and hold down, which will make life difficult for Makhachev. And on the feet, he's a very, very good boxer, very good striker, so he could have some success there too. So I've got to choose my words very carefully as I summarise this one, because I'm so often misinterpreted in these breakdown videos where people take things I say too literally. A few weeks back I said that the fight between Marvin Vettori and Israel Adesanya was very competitive, and I felt I elaborated as to what I meant by that in the breakdown video, but some people were critical and saying, how can you say it was competitive when, you know, Izzy was never in any trouble and won a dominant decision, which is obviously true. But what I meant was Vettori wasn't in any danger or outclassed in any area that fight took place. It wasn't like he took tons of damage and Izzy completely outclassed him on the feet. He kept the fight relatively close in the sense that he held his own in all areas. And I see Bobby Green doing the same thing. I don't think Bobby Green's going to get blown out the water here. He probably will lose a decision, and he probably will lose a decisive decision. But I do think he can hold his own standing up, and I do think because of how good he is at defending himself on the ground, he can make life difficult for Makhachev on the ground. So when I say I expect this one to be competitive, I'm not saying I expect it to be competitive in the sense that we're going to get a big back and forth war and maybe Makhachev edges the fight by one round. I'm just saying that I don't think Green's going to be massively out of his depth here. I think he's going to be able to hold his own and defend himself reasonably well in all areas. A lot of people think Bobby Green is going to get smoked in this fight, and I can assure you that's not the case. I'd be very, very, very surprised if Makhachev were even able to finish Green in this fight. In actual fact, I'd be extremely impressed if Makhachev were able to finish this one. Of course, the final thing that we've got to talk about is the fact that Bobby Green is stepping up to take this fight on short notice, and as a result, this fight is being contested at a 160-pound catch weight, and I don't think this is going to have any influence on the matchup at all. Obviously, coming on short notice isn't a good thing, and in Bobby Green's interview with Ariel Helwani on the MMA Hour this week, he said that after his fights, he likes to eat a lot of food, and as a result, after his fight recently against Haqparast, he blew up in weight to about 195 pounds. But the reality is, Bobby Green is one of these old school, anytime, any place, anywhere kind of fighters. And I don't think I've ever even seen Bobby Green breathe heavily, let alone gas out. How often have we seen him in between rounds of these crazy wars where he doesn't even sit on his stool, he doesn't even listen to his corner, just paces back and forth, mad dogging his opponent from across the cage. He's a wild guy, and so I don't think stepping up on short notice is going to affect him at all, because we've never seen him gas. He's got a great gas tank, and he fought a couple of weeks ago against Haqparast, so I'm sure the weight cut, was pretty tough, but how out of shape could he be when this is a guy who's literally always in shape. So I don't think that's going to have too much of an impact on this matchup. So that's how I see this one playing out. Obviously, with the way that the odds have been set, it's a difficult fight to bet because there's no way you can bet Makhachev as such a big favourite, even though he's very, very likely to win. But at the same time, you don't really want to bet Bobby because you are probably setting fire to your money. You know, it is unlikely he wins this, but I do think he can make it very, very interesting. I think a lot of people are going to be surprised by some of the success I believe Bobby will have at times in this fight. But anyway, that's it for this fight. Let me know what you think of all that stuff in the comments below. Do you agree? Are you one of these people that think Bobby is going to get smoked? And he might. You know, he might. We know Bobby's very inconsistent. He might not show up. But even if he doesn't show up, he's still a tough fucker that is very difficult to put away. So now let's take a look at the next fight that we're going to be talking about in this video, which is Misha Cirkunov against Wellington Turman. So if we start off by taking a look at the odds on this one, we can see that Misha Cirkunov is currently the favourite at average odds of about 1.83, which is minus 120 for an implied probability of 55%. And if we take a look at the odds on Turman, he's currently around an average of 2.0, which is plus 100 for an implied probability of 50%. So both these guys in that even money odds range, in an odds range where the bookies think this one could go either way, and I tend to agree with them for how these guys match up from a stylistic point of view. So Cirkunov is 34 years old, 6'3" with a 77-inch reach, and Turman is 25 years old, 6 foot tall with a 72-inch reach. Couple X factors for us to discuss on this one. The first being, this will be Cirkunov's second fight at middleweight since dropping down from light heavyweight. He made his middleweight debut against Jotko, and to be fair, wasn't really that much of a difference in how he looked at light heavyweight compared to how he looked at middleweight. Pretty much the same, if I'm being honest with you. A couple of the other X factors to discuss though. Misha Cirkunov does have quite a significant injury to his left arm. There seems to be a recurring chronic injury that doesn't seem to be getting better. If you go and watch any of Cirkunov's recent fights, you go watch his fight against Ryan Spann or his fight against Krzysztof Jotko, you'll see this for yourself. And I want to say a big thank you to David, a long-time member of my community, who brought this to my attention during the Fight Research live stream for this fight, where if you go watch one of Cirkunov's last two fights, you'll see that his left arm is much smaller than his right arm. Like, it's pretty major, and it's clearly not something that's healing or getting better. Left arm, very different to his right arm. And if we go to Google, we can see that there is actually a thread about it. If you just search for Cirkunov arm, there are some threads online. So again, do your own research on this one. Strongly recommend seeing it for yourself because it is quite wild how much smaller his left arm is than his right arm in his last two fights. And obviously that's going to be a big risk factor whenever you're thinking of betting on Cirkunov. It is a huge detriment to him that he's going to have to deal with this issue, maybe for the rest of his career. He's also a southpaw, which is obviously a big issue because as a southpaw, his left arm is his power punching hand. So he's probably not able to generate anywhere near as much power in that left hand from the southpaw stance. And on top of that, he is predominantly a grappler, which is going to affect his grip strength, his ability to drag guys to the ground and maintain tight body locks and stuff in strong grappling positions is a big deal. So definitely look into that. Another X factor with Cirkunov is that, and I don't say this lightly, but he is one of the most chinniest fighters in the UFC. Possibly the chinniest. Possibly the most fragile fighter in the UFC. There's like two different kinds of chinny fighter for me. There's the kind of chinny fighter, ironically, like Wellington Turman, who appears to be chinny just because they're bad defensively and they don't see the shots coming. That's what Turman's bad chin is like. Turman gets rocked, dropped, wobbled, knocked out a lot, but it's because he's bad defensively. He doesn't read his opponent, so he eats clean, hard shots, gets knocked out. They say the shots will knock you out are the ones you don't see coming. That's why Turman gets knocked out a lot. With Cirkunov, he's not that bad defensively, but he just can't take a shot. As soon as he eats a clean hard shot to the head, it's like his brain just completely switches off. This guy is so fragile that it's very difficult to bet on him, because you know at any time in the fight he can go down and it's over. This guy is ridiculously chinny. It's insane. I've never seen anything like it. It's nuts. This guy makes fucking Alistair Overeem look like Diego Sanchez. Crazy chinny. Crazy chinny. So it's always difficult feeling comfortable betting on Cirkunov. But he's 34 years old, 6'3" with a 77-inch reach. And Turman, 25 years old, 6 foot tall with a 72-inch reach. So Cirkunov will have a bit of a size and a decent reach advantage over Turman. It's a nice 5-inch reach advantage. What I will say about Cirkunov, if we start off by talking about how these two guys match up from a striking point of view, you can definitely see that Cirkunov understands his limitations when it comes to striking. You can see in Cirkunov's last fight against Jotko that he understands himself that he can't take a shot, and as a result, he now just avoids engaging. Some other examples I can think of fighters that have gone through this, the best one probably being Glover Teixeira. Glover would be this guy that throughout his career would come forward with loads of aggression, loads of pressure, walk his opponents down, use head movement to kind of roll with the punches, slip the shots to get inside and beat you up in the clinch with that dirty boxing style. But as Glover got older and slower and easier to hit and his reflexes went, he couldn't take a shot like he used to. And we've all seen Glover in fights where every single time his opponent threw a punch, it looked like they were going to knock Glover out. And so Glover made the adjustment to deal with the fact that he couldn't take a shot anymore, or couldn't take a shot as well as he used to. Glover transitioned into more of a grappling heavy game plan, where now, Glover's strategy is to try and get you to the ground as soon as he possibly can, so you don't have an opportunity to obviously make him pay for the fact that he can't take a shot like he used to. We also saw Cody Garbrandt do something kind of different. If you remember how reckless and wild and aggressive Cody used to be, and then in his fight against Rafael Assunção, when he started training under Mark Henry, a far more cautious counter-striking approach from Garbrandt, where he didn't put himself in as much danger. And we're seeing a similar sort of evolution from Misha Cirkunov, where he just doesn't engage on the feet anymore. He is primarily a grappler, and now he's not interested in striking. He tries to stay all the way out of a range where he could be hit, or he's all the way on the inside working the takedowns. Now, if the fight stays standing, you've got to give the advantage to Turman. Cirkunov moves better. He's better defensively. There's no doubt about that. But Cirkunov is now a lot more tentative on the feet, a lot more passive. And Turman's more aggressive. He throws a higher volume. So Turman's going to be able to outwork Cirkunov on the feet. He's going to be able to outstrike him. But Turman's, pretty bad defensively. He's got a bad chin himself. I could easily see Cirkunov knocking Turman out by landing a big counter. But I give Turman the advantage on the feet because he's a lot more aggressive than Cirkunov, and will likely outstrike Cirkunov by a decent margin. When it comes to grappling, it's a lot more complicated because there's not that much recent footage available on Turman's takedown defense. We don't know a lot about Turman's takedown defense. What we do know is that if you do get Turman to the ground, he's very, very weak off his back and he's quite a low level on the ground. Cirkunov is an extremely good offensive wrestler. He's got beautifully timed deep double leg takedown attempts, and when he shoots in deep on his opponent's legs and hips, it's going to be very difficult for them to stuff the takedown because of how good his timing is. We don't know a lot about Turman's takedown defense, but from what I have seen, Cirkunov should be able to get this guy down. And if Cirkunov is able to get Turman down, because of how weak Turman's looked off his back, Cirkunov should be able to rack up a lot of top control on the ground. Now, my one criticism of Cirkunov's grappling is that he is one of these guys that does rush positions on the ground too much and hunts for long shot submissions on the ground, instead of focusing on controlling his opponent, scoring points by racking up top control. Because of that, Cirkunov often gives up position on the ground, but Turman is very easy to hold down, and as a result, if Cirkunov does come into this fight with a grappling heavy game plan, he's quite likely able to take Turman down and hold him down for long periods. With this fight, the reason why it's tricky is because you've got to give Cirkunov the advantage, because even though Turman's got a slight advantage on the feet, having an advantage on the feet isn't useful if the fight doesn't take place on the feet, right? If Cirkunov takes Turman down and dominates him on the ground, Turman's not going to use that marginal advantage on the feet he has. So you have to lean Cirkunov here. But it's very difficult to feel confident in Cirkunov because of how fragile he is. I have zero faith in this guy's chin. What I do like, though, about Cirkunov is that his gas tank is really good, and it looks just as good as ever at middleweight. And so that's a huge bonus for me in this matchup, because it means that if Cirkunov can avoid engaging on the feet, we know that he does have the gas tank to persistently shoot takedowns for 15 minutes and utilise a really grappling heavy game plan where we don't have to worry that much about him burning himself out. So I definitely lean towards Cirkunov in this fight. In the even money odds range, I think he gives you the better risk to reward ratio and is more likely to win, but it's impossible to feel confident in a guy like this with how fragile he is. Having said that, Turman's pretty fragile himself, so maybe that risk factor balances out. I hope you found that useful. Now let's focus on the next fight, which is going to be Ji Young Kim against Priscilla Cachoeira. So if we start off by taking a look at the odds on this one, we can see that Ji Young Kim is currently the favourite at average odds of about 1.61, which is minus 164 for an implied probability. An implied probability of 62%. If we take a look at the odds on Priscilla Cachoeira, she is currently around an average of 2.40, which is plus 140. Excuse me, guys. Something stuck at the back of my throat, sorry guys. 2.40, which is plus 140 for an implied probability of 42%. So, this fight, roughly 60-40 in favour of Ji Young Kim. So, Ji Young Kim, 32 years old, 5'7" with a 72-inch reach. And Priscilla Cachoeira, 33 years old, 5'7" with a 65-inch reach. So, both girls roughly about the same age. Both are about the same height, but you can see a massive reach advantage for Ji Young Kim. She's going to have a 7-inch reach advantage over Priscilla Cachoeira, which is absolutely massive. And to be fair to Ji Young Kim, earlier on in her UFC career, she didn't do a particularly good job of using this reach advantage, but in her more recent fights, she's starting to pump the jab, starting to try and fight long, and doing a much better job of taking advantage of her abnormally long reach. So if we start off by talking about how these girls match up on the ground, because that's probably the easiest thing to cover, because they're both extremely bad on the ground. Both very weak off their back, and both just very, very low level there. Out of the two, I would give Ji Young Kim the advantage on the ground, because if you take Cachoeira down, it's almost like she's never even done a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu class. She's completely clueless, doesn't know what to do off her back, and doesn't really make any effort to get back up to her feet. However, Cachoeira's initial takedown defense is very, very good, and what I mean by that is when her opponent initially shoots in on her legs, she's very, very good at stuffing that initial takedown attempt. It's only when you persist and use a little bit of chain wrestling that Cachoeira becomes easy to take down. But trust me, if you take Cachoeira down, very easy to rack up a lot of top control on this girl. She offers absolutely nothing off her back. So I would give Ji Young Kim the advantage on the ground. But neither of these girls ever tried to take their opponents down. If Ji Young Kim comes into this fight with a grappling heavy game plan, I believe she'll win easily, because there's no doubt that she's better than Cachoeira on the ground, and she's got the gas tank to grapple at a decent pace for 15 minutes. The problem with Kim is that we've seen her in this situation many times in the past. There have been countless occasions in the past where Kim has fought strikers that have got bad takedown defense and a low level ground game, and for whatever reason she's been reluctant to use grappling. Like, take a look at her record. We know that Lucy Pudilova, very bad takedown defense, low level grappling. Kim didn't try to use grappling in that fight. Melinda Fabian, she beat Fabian, but she scraped past her by split decision. And again, we know Melinda Fabian, bad takedown offense, low level ground game. Kim didn't try to use grappling in that fight. We all know about how bad Antonina Shevchenko's takedown offense and ground game is. Again, Kim, very little grappling in that fight. Alexa Grasso, bad takedown defense, low level ground game. Again, Kim didn't try to use grappling in that fight. And again, Molly McCann. We know Molly McCann, bad takedown offense, low level on the ground. Still no wrestling from Kim. So Kim has had many opportunities in the past to use grappling to give herself an advantage against fighters that have bad takedown offense and are bad on the ground. She's chosen not to use grappling. So, does a leopard ever change its spots? Can you teach an old dog new tricks? That's for you to decide. But based on past performances, it is unlikely that Kim will try to take Cachoeira down. If she does, she'll have an advantage there. But Kim seems very reluctant to use grappling for whatever reason. Cachoeira never tries to take her opponents down. Her nickname gives you a clue as to what her style is like. The Zombie Girl. What Cachoeira wants to do is plod forward like a zombie, put a lot of pressure on her opponent, and just load up on her big winging power hooks to try and knock you out. So we very rarely see Priscilla try to utilize any type of grappling in her fight. So the dynamic that you're likely to see in this matchup is Ji Young Kim circling on the outside, chipping away at Cachoeira. Excuse me again. Sorry, guys. Whew. Something in my throat, man. Sorry it's disrupted the video, but god damn. Alright, so what you're likely to see in this fight, or where you're likely to see this fight contested, is Ji Young Kim circling away for Cachoeira, circling on the outside, staying behind the jab and chipping away at Cachoeira. You're going to see Cachoeira walk Ji Young Kim down, loading up on big winging power hooks to try and knock Kim out. Now, Chael Sonnen famously once said, when you try and win a fight by knockout, you often end up losing a decision. And that's the biggest risk to Cachoeira in this fight. Because she's going to be coming forward, loading up on these big winging hooks, trying to knock Kim out. And Kim is going to be trying to avoid engaging, chipping away from behind the jab and racking up a lot more volume. Now, what's interesting about this fight is both girls are very bad defensively. That favours Cachoeira, because if both these girls get into a firefight, Cachoeira is going to come out on top. She's far more powerful. She hits way harder. So if you've got two girls that struggle to see the shots come in and are very bad defensively, you want to be on the fighter with the bigger gun, the bigger hammer, the bigger baseball bat. That's definitely Cachoeira. Her weapons are far more dangerous than Kim's weapons. But, like Chael famously once said, when you try and win a fight by knockout, you often end up losing a decision. And the risk to Cachoeira in this fight is that she's not going to be able to match the volume of Kim. Cachoeira did slow down as the fight wore on against Luana Carolina. Now, that fight was a long time ago, and Cachoeira has improved a lot since then. But we know Kim can fight at a high pace of 15 minutes without slowing down, whereas Cachoeira has an inefficient style where she comes forward aggressively, exerts a lot of energy when she loads up on those big power hooks, and as a result is likely to be less dangerous as the fight progresses, and her output is also likely to drop as the fight goes as a result, which will open the door for Ji Young Kim to start to outstrike her into the second and third round. So this is a complex matchup for sure. The odds should possibly be closer than they are. I do think this is a dog or pass matchup. If you do want to bet this fight, I would take Cachoeira. Ji Young Kim is not at all interesting or not at all tempting to me. I do think Cachoeira is the bet to place if you want to bet this fight. Personally, it's not a fight I'm going to be betting just because I think both girls do things that can cause the other a problem. I think Cachoeira may struggle to keep up with Kim's volume in rounds 2 and 3. But I also think that Kim is so bad defensively, she's going to be at significant risk of taking big damage in this fight. And ultimately, damage should be the primary scoring factor in MMA. So, or is the primary scoring factor in MMA. So, it's a tough fight to call. Could go either way. The odds are probably where they should be, I guess. Probably give a slight edge to Kim's if it goes the distance. It probably means she's outworked Cachoeira to win a decision. With how bad Kim is defensively, I could definitely see Cachoeira winning this on damage, or maybe even knocking her out. But then that risk is negated by the fact that if the fight went to the ground, Kim would have an advantage. So I'm not interested in betting this fight. It's going to be a pass from me. But I do think this is dog or pass. If you really want to bet this fight, you've got to take Cachoeira. So now let's take a look at the next fight, which is going to be Arman Tsarukyan against Joel Alvarez. So if we start off by taking a look at the odds on this one, we can see that Tsarukyan is currently the favourite at average odds of about 1.45, which is going to be minus 222 for an implied probability of 69%. And if we take a look at the odds on Joel Alvarez, he's currently around an average of 2.80, which is plus 180 for an implied probability of 36%. So I'm very excited about this matchup. I think this is the most meaningful matchup on the UFC Fight Night card this weekend, because with Tsarukyan and Alvarez, you've got two young, hungry, up-and-coming bulls in the UFC lightweight division who are both supremely talented and both potentially future top 10 fighters. And whoever wins this fight this weekend is going to take a big step towards a top 10 ranking, and whoever loses is obviously going to have their career set back a little bit. So very interested to see who comes out on top of this weekend. Now, I'm very high on Arman Tsarukyan. If you're a member of my community at MMABettingTips.com, you'll know I've been talking about this guy for a really long time, and I think he's very, 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 very good. So coming into watching this matchup, or coming into researching this fight this weekend, I thought that I would automatically be betting on Tsarukyan, because from memory, Tsarukyan is a very strong grappler, an elite MMA grappler, and we know that Joel Alvarez has bad takedown defense and he's very, very weak off his back. So I thought this would be a great stylistic matchup for Tsarukyan, but when I started to research this fight this weekend, I realised from what I was watching that this is actually a very complex fight that could go either way, and it's a very deep matchup, a very complex fight, and I'm really looking forward to digging into this one for you. So let's start off by looking at the tail of the tape. So Arman Tsarukyan is 25 years old, 5'7", with a 72.5-inch reach. And Joel Alvarez is 28 years old, 6'3", with a 77-inch reach. So as you can see, Joel Alvarez is a lot bigger than Tsarukyan. And he also has a massive 5-inch reach advantage. I really want to emphasize how big of a deal this size difference is, because it plays a huge part in how these two guys match up in both striking and grappling, and it's going to be something that I refer to a lot in this breakdown video because it's a massive factor for us to take into consideration. On the feet, Alvarez is going to have a big advantage over Tsarukyan. The 5-inch reach advantage is huge for a guy like Alvarez that knows how to use it. Alvarez is very good at fighting long and chipping away at his opponents with big damaging strikes from a range where they can't counter him. Alvarez knows how to use that reach, and his striking is very, very, very good. He throws a very diverse range of strikes, and what I mean by that is he throws leg kicks, body kicks, head kicks, elbows, hooks, jabs, uppercuts, spinning attacks, the whole 9 yards. Alvarez is absolutely vicious with his striking, very dangerous on the feet, and carries legit one-shot fight-ending power in everything that he throws. And he also throws a very high volume as well. On the feet, Alvarez is a nightmare, and that reach advantage and size advantage is going to make life even more difficult for Tsarukyan. Tsarukyan's not a bad striker, but because his base is in grappling, his striking only really exists to defend himself on the feet and set up his takedowns. So Arman Tsarukyan is one of these guys that focuses on defense first on the feet and just tries to avoid engaging so that he could kind of conserve energy, pace himself, and look for the next opportunity to get the fight to the ground. But there's no doubt Joel Alvarez has a big advantage over Tsarukyan when it comes to striking, and if this fight stays standing, it's going to be trouble for Tsarukyan because he also doesn't react particularly well to being pressured, and Alvarez has got that killer instinct in him. As soon as he senses you're feeling uncomfortable on the feet, he'll crank that pressure right up and really look to make life even more difficult for you. But when it comes to grappling, that's where this fight gets super complicated, because Alvarez is one of these guys that has a lot of wins off his back. If you take a look at his record, look at how many wins this guy's got by guillotine, triangle choke, armbar. This guy is an absolute nightmare off his back. And one of the reasons why he's so dangerous is because he's so long and tall and flexible. When these lightweights take a guy down like Alvarez is 6'3" and he's so flexible and he's attacking you with his long legs, and he's generating a lot of leverage off these triangles, these arm bars with his length. He catches guys in a lot of funky positions from the bottom that they don't expect, and that's what makes him very dangerous on the bottom. This guy's a nightmare. His submission game's very dangerous, but I also feel it could be a bit of a curse. Because if you look at Alvarez's record, sure, he has submitted Joe Duffy and Alexander Yakovlev, and I don't want to take anything away from Alvarez for those two wins. They're very impressive. But what you quite often see with a guy like Alvarez is that they have a lot of success with one particular thing that they do against low-level opponents on the regional circuit of whichever country they competed in on their way up. And in this case, Alvarez has had a lot of success submitting guys off his back on the low-level regional circuit in Spain. And then what happens is they get into the UFC and they start to face a higher level of opponent. They continue to do the things that worked well for them against lower-level opponents on the regional scene in their native country. But they start to find that as they start to face a higher level of opponent, those tricks and techniques and strategies that they used to use are no longer effective. And I feel there's a real legit risk that Alvarez is going to run into that problem starting this weekend against Arman Tsarukyan. Because Alvarez is one of these guys that is so dangerous off his back and has so many submission wins off his back that he doesn't even try to stuff takedowns. When a guy shoots in and tries to take him down, he'll practically throw himself to the ground and invite you into his guard because he's so confident in his ability to submit you, because he's done it so many times in the past, that he doesn't even want to try and stuff the takedown. He's more than happy to go to the ground. The problem with that is that we know 9 times out of 10 in MMA, when you're on the bottom, you're in a losing position. And if Alvarez is going to give up weak takedowns in this fight and allow Tsarukyan to take him down and hold him down, it could be very difficult for Alvarez to win a decision. Every once in a while, we do see guys win a decision off their back, but it's rare. It's very, very, very rare. So that's a big issue with Alvarez, because when he does get taken down, he doesn't make any effort to get back up to his feet. All he does is attack submissions off his back. And that's worked really well for him up until this point in his career. But Arman Tsarukyan, by an order of magnitude, is the greatest MMA grappler this guy has ever faced by a mile. Tsarukyan is a whole new set of problems for Alvarez on the ground. So one way in which Tsarukyan is likely to cause Alvarez problems on the ground in ways Alvarez has never experienced before is Tsarukyan's awareness of the threats that a guy like Alvarez poses to him on the ground. Whereas guys in the past would take Alvarez down and, jump into his guard and look to beat him up from top position, Tsarukyan's very aware of the risks guys on the ground pose to him when he's trying to take them down. And he does a very good job of neutralizing them. So with a guy like Alvarez, all of his attacks on the ground, everything that makes him dangerous with his submission game stems from him being able to use his legs. Because he needs to throw his legs up to attack with triangles and arm bars. And they are his primary weapon. If you take away his ability to use his legs, he becomes significantly less dangerous on the ground. And Tsarukyan understands this. So when Tsarukyan takes guys down, he's not taking them down in the guard. He's taking them down in the half guard, side control, or you'll see him tie the legs up Khabib style, which means they can't attack him with arm bars and triangles, which makes Alvarez far less dangerous on the ground for a guy like Tsarukyan. Tsarukyan, with his high-level MMA grappling, can neutralize the threats that Alvarez poses to him on the ground, which makes this a very, very interesting fight. Because I'm wondering whether Alvarez will understand that early in this fight, in terms of Say Tsarukyan takes Alvarez down in this matchup and he immediately passes the half guard, takes away Alvarez's ability to throw up arm bars and triangles by, trapping Alvarez's legs. And all of a sudden, for the first time in Alvarez's career, he's going to realise, shit, there's nothing I can do to this guy off my back. I need to work my way back up to my feet now, and I need to keep this fight standing if I want to win. I'm wondering if Alvarez thinks that way, because if you go back and look at Alvarez's past fights, he shows no willingness, no intent to work his way back up to his feet when he gets taken down. Alvarez is the type of guy that if you take him down 30 seconds into a round, you're going to be able to hold him down for 4.5 minutes. He won't make any effort to pop back up to his feet. But if he does that against Tsarukyan, he's likely to get dominated and lose a 30-27 decision. So what I'm wondering here is if Tsarukyan starts to take Alvarez down and ties his legs up, will Alvarez realise, okay, this guy is not like anything I've experienced in the past. I need to use my striking to beat this guy. And then will we see Alvarez start to show a bit more urgency to work his way back up to his feet. That's very significant because the size difference in this fight will make it extremely difficult for Alvarez to be held down. It is not going to be easy for someone that is 5'7" to hold someone down that is 6'3". Size matters in MMA, and we've got weight classes for a reason. And if we're being brutally honest, Alvarez shouldn't be fighting at lightweight. With this wingspan, he should be fighting probably in the middleweight division, welterweight at the very least. The fact that Alvarez even fights at lightweight with a wingspan like this is absolutely insane, and we know, of course, he has missed weight in the past. But this guy is enormous for a lightweight, and it will not be easy for a guy as small as Tsarukyan to hold a guy like Alvarez down if Alvarez does not want to be held down. And when it comes to Tsarukyan, he's the opposite end of the scale. He's way too small for a lightweight. With this wingspan, he should probably be fighting in the featherweight division or even the bantamweight division. And I do believe in the future we will see Tsarukyan drop a weight class. He's just way too small for the lightweight division. So with this matchup, we've got two guys on opposite ends of the scale. Tsarukyan's a very small lightweight. Alvarez, very, very big lightweight. And what you really notice about Tsarukyan's MMA grappling is that from a technical point of view, he's brilliant. Amazing. Brilliant grappling control. Very, very good takedowns. Great chain wrestling. He's the total package when it comes to MMA grappling. But because he's very small, he lacks physicality to his grappling, and so he struggles to hold guys down. He does everything right from a technical point of view, but he's just not strong, not heavy, not physically imposing enough to hold guys in positions and control them. And that's the big worry here for Tsarukyan. If Joel Alvarez doesn't want to be held down, I don't think Tsarukyan is going to be able to hold him down. I think Alvarez is going to be too big, too strong, and he's going to be able to explode back up to his feet. But if we see Alvarez do what he usually does, just gives up cheap takedowns and lies on his back, throwing up long shot submissions, very likely Tsarukyan dominates him from top position and wins a 30-27 decision. So, from a betting point of view, this is a really complex fight, because if you judge this fight based on past performances, Tsarukyan deserves to be a big favourite, and he's very likely to win. Because based on past performances, his offensive wrestling is amazing, Alvarez's takedown defence is very bad, and Alvarez is also very, very weak off his back. So if we're judging the fight on past performances, Tsarukyan should be able to get Alvarez down easily and dominate him on the ground. That's the real simplified way of looking at this. But we know that MMA is a very complex sport. Very, very complex sport to analyse. That's why we go into so much depth in our research. And this is a complex fight because Alvarez has looked weak off his back in his past fights by choice, because he's chosen to spend time on his back attacking his opponent with submissions. If in this fight, against a different style, against a different guy that poses a different set of challenges to Alvarez, if he makes a different choice and chooses instead to use his size and physicality to not be on the bottom and instead keep this fight on the feet, changes everything, and definitely swings the pendulum in favour of Alvarez perhaps winning this fight. So it's a fascinating matchup, And no matter how much you know about MMA, no matter how much time you put into researching this one, I think it's impossible to feel confident either side, because the only way to know how this is going to go is knowing what choice Alvarez is going to make when he's in there on Saturday night. Will he choose to lie on his back and try and attack Tsarukyan with long shot submissions, or will he choose to make Tsarukyan work hard for takedowns and actively try to scramble back up to his feet, where he'll have a huge advantage over Tsarukyan when it comes to striking? Amazing fight. I can't wait to see what happens. I'm sorry that I can't give you a prediction on this one with a high degree of certainty, but without knowing what Alvarez's choice and intention will be on this matchup, very, very difficult to call either way. But I hope you found that useful if you are thinking of betting this fight this weekend. So we now move into the final fight that I want to talk about in this video, which is going to be Petrosyan against Gregory Rodrigues. And don't forget, if you'd like to watch breakdown videos for all the other fights on this card, or the prelim matchups, head on over to my website, MMABettingTips.com. You'll love it there. We've got a really good community. It's good value. You'll enjoy the content that I put out there every week, very similar to the content that I put out for you guys on YouTube. So, Petrosyan, Gregory Rodrigues, another very, very interesting matchup this. If we start off by taking a look at the odds, we can see that Gregory Rodrigues is currently the favourite at average odds of about, where is he? There he is, 1.63. which is minus 159 for an implied probability of 61%. If we take a look at the odds on Petrosyan, he's currently around an average of 2.35, which is plus 135 for an implied probability of 43%. So Petrosyan is 6'1". Sorry, he's not 6'1". He is 6'2", 71-inch reach at he's 31 years old. Sorry guys, been a long video. Gregory Rodrigues is 30 years old, 6'3", with a 76-inch reach. So both guys are roughly the same age, but Rodrigues has a very nice 5-inch reach advantage over Petrosyan. But to be honest with you, I don't think the reach is going to have that much of an impact on how these two guys match up. Sometimes reach advantage will play a huge part in fights. We've just spoken about the significance of Joel Alvarez having that big reach advantage over Tsarukyan. But Gregory Rodrigues doesn't really fight long or know how to use his reach, so I don't think it's going to benefit him against Petrosyan, who is a very high-level kickboxer. Petrosyan comes from a traditional kickboxing background, and he's a far more technical striker than Rodrigues. I don't see Rodrigues being able to cause Petrosyan too much of a problem with that reach. So, this is one of those fights where you have got a debutant in Petrosyan coming in against a far more experienced fighter in Gregory Rodrigues. And the styles of these two guys make this a fascinating matchup. So, how do they match up from a stylistic point of view? Let's first of all talk about how these two guys match up when it comes to striking. So we've already said Petrosyan has got a base in kickboxing. He moves very well on the feet. He's very fast, he's very technical, he's got a great gas tank, and again, he has got legit one-shot KO power in everything that he throws. This guy's devastating. You give this guy a tiny little opening and he'll punish you by landing the kill shot. He is an absolute nightmare on the feet, and he will have a big advantage over Gregory Rodrigues when it comes to striking. There's no doubt about that at all. I think Petrosyan causes Rodrigues big trouble in this one on the feet. And the reason why I think Rodrigues is going to struggle so much on the feet here is that there's a big difference in what makes some of the greatest fighters of all time great, or some really elite fighters great, is often that they have the body type, the frame, the size of everyone else in their weight class, but they have attributes and positive qualities from fighters that compete in much lower weight classes. The best example being Jon Jones. He's got the wingspan of a heavyweight, he's got the size of a heavyweight, the height, the reach of a heavyweight, but he fights like someone in the lightweight division. Way faster than light heavyweights, or most light heavyweights. Way faster, very well rounded, very athletic, great balance, all the kind of stuff that you don't see from a lot of light heavyweights. It's what makes Jon Jones great. You look at a guy like Ciryl Gane, Cirkunov compared to someone like a Roy Nelson, for example, or a Mark Hunt, or a Jared Vandeira, or an Andrei Arlovsky, Cirkunov moves like a welterweight. So when you look at guys that have positive qualities from guys in lower weight classes, but the size of guys of their weight class, they tend to be a bit of a nightmare, and they tend to cause a lot of guys in their weight class a problem because they don't fight like most guys in their weight class. They're a little bit more different and a little bit special. You see that with Petrosyan striking. He's way faster than most middleweights, way more explosive, way more athletic. And when you look at Rodrigues, he is a true middleweight. He's heavy, he's slow, he's flat-footed. To quote Conor McGregor back when he was talking about moving up from the featherweight division to the lightweight, he would talk about how lightweight was the stuck in the mud division and how he was way faster than everyone in that division. Gregory Rodrigues is one of these fighters that is stuck in the mud. Very slow, very slow to react to what his opponent is doing. Reflexes aren't great, and he's not good defensively. So on the feet, I think he's going to be a sit-in duck to the knockout. We have seen him get dinged a lot, rocked, dropped, knocked out, wobbled many times in the past, which isn't a good thing when you're facing someone as dangerous on the feet as Armen Petrosyan. So Petrosyan's going to have a huge advantage on the feet here. However, we know that very few fighters in this world are perfect in all areas. Almost every fighter has big weaknesses somewhere, and with Petrosyan being inexperienced in MMA, having only 7 pro fights, we know this guy is going to have some pretty significant weaknesses, and he absolutely does, because Petrosyan's takedown defense and ground game is absolutely awful. Don't take it from me though, I could show you so you can see for yourself. So if we take a look at this fight from Petrosyan against Artur Aliskerov, it is from a while back now. It's from about 18 months ago, but it was the last time that we got a really good look at Petrosyan's takedown offense and ground game. So all you could do is make the best decision possible with the information you've got available, and this fight gives us a pretty good base to work from in terms of what to expect from Petrosyan's grappling. So Petrosyan's the guy in the blue shorts, and we know for a fact he's got a big advantage over Rodrigues on the feet. So I'm just going to show you his deficiencies when it comes to grappling here, so you could see areas in which Rodrigues may be able to cause this guy a problem. So it doesn't take too long for Aliskerov to shoot the first takedown of the fight. I'm just going to skim through this. I don't want to make this video super long, so we'll just kind of skip through it and focus on the takedown defense and ground game of Petrosyan. So what you will see here is a sign of his inexperience. So Aliskerov has shot a nice deep double leg and got in really deep on the legs of Petrosyan here. Now what Petrosyan should be trying to do in this position is dig underhooks to defend this takedown. So if we pause there, you can see there's quite a lot of space in between the right leg of Petrosyan and the left arm of Aliskerov. Petrosyan should be trying to use his right arm to dig an underhook there to give him the leverage he needs, along with his overhook on the left side, to start working to defend the takedown. But he does completely the wrong thing, and instead of trying to fight for an underhook, you can see there's daylight in there. There's enough room to at least work for an underhook, but instead of doing that, he chooses to throw strikes instead. See these elbows? And as soon as you do that, you're basically gift wrapping the takedown to your opponent. So you can see instead of fighting for underhooks, throw strikes here, watch his short elbows, bam bam, and Aliskerov's like, thank you very much, that's all I need to drive in deep on your legs now and get this takedown. And as you can see, not only does Petrosyan give up the takedown very easily, but he's also very, very weak off his back. There's absolutely nothing off his back here. Looks very, very, very weak and gets held down very easily. But Petrosyan is a big, strong dude. Just like we were saying with Joel Alvarez in the Armen Tsarukyan breakdown, guys that are big, strong and athletic are often quite difficult to hold down. So even if they don't have the correct technique to pop back up to their feet, they can often just bull their way back up to their feet. And that's exactly what we see Petrosyan do here. Literally just creates a little bit of space for himself off his back and stands back up. But that doesn't mask the deficiencies in Petrosyan's takedown offense and ground game. So we'll carry on going, and you'll see more issues from Petrosyan's takedown offense and ground game as the fight continues. Here's another takedown attempt here from Aliskerov, where he again drives Petrosyan into the cage, gets the body lock this time, and easily drags Petrosyan to the ground any second now. Here we can see when he commits to it, look at how easily Petrosyan goes down. And again, Petrosyan just doesn't know how to defend himself here, just casually gives his back up. Aliskerov doesn't make him pay for it, and again, because Petrosyan's a big strong dude, he does stand back up to his feet, but a very unconvincing ground game from Petrosyan. So again, I don't want to make this video too long, but you can see takedown defense, ground game pretty sketchy, right? And then look at how weak his takedown defense is there. Aliskerov easily driving in on the legs and taking him down. Very, very bad takedown defense there from Petrosyan. And again, very, very, very weak off his back. Just lies in guard, doing absolutely nothing pretty much until eventually his opponent Aliskerov gives him a little bit of space from top position that he uses to work his way back up to his feet. But remember what we were saying earlier on, if you make one mistake against this guy, he's very dangerous and he can put you away. Deep in round 2, Aliskerov gives him a little opening and he pays the ultimate price because Petrosyan sends him to Le Shadow Realm. First class ticket, boom, right hand, puts him away. Pretty nasty. So that obviously makes this a much more interesting fight, because while Petrosyan's definitely going to have the advantage when it comes to striking, we can't ignore that his takedown offense and ground game looks very bad. And while Rodrigues is big and heavy and flat-footed and slow on the feet, that physicality, that heaviness, that big middleweight frame, that big muscular frame, means that he is a very physically imposing grappler and he is very heavy from top position. And so while Rodrigues' size and clunkiness and heaviness may work against him on the feet, he's going to be far slower than Petrosyan, it will help him on the ground because that size, that weight, that physicality will make it easier for him to hold Petrosyan down and control him on the ground. So if Rodrigues comes into this fight with a grappling heavy game plan, as you can see from the video footage I just showed you, he's going to be able to cause Petrosyan big problems. The question is, will Rodrigues be able to survive long enough to get the fight to the ground? Because we've seen Petrosyan's pretty good at scrambling back up to his feet. It's a question of whether Rodrigues can be persistent with the grappling and keep this fight on the ground for long enough to neutralise Petrosyan's striking. Where it does get a little bit dicey for Rodrigues is that he is one of these guys that only tends to grapple when he finds himself struggling on the feet. So he is primarily a striker and his preference is to strike. And he only really tends to go to his grappling when he, starts to struggle a little bit, starts to get a little bit hurt on the feet, or, needs to do more to put his stamp on rounds. Problem with a guy like Petrosyan is you may not get that opportunity because he could just knock you out at any time. So Rodrigues needs to come into this fight with a grappling heavy game plan, try to avoid striking, because I think he could get knocked out at any time if this one stays on the feet. He's far too slow, far too easy to hit to survive for very long against a guy like Petrosyan. So it's another complex fight where Petrosyan's got the advantage on the feet, a huge advantage, but Rodrigues has got a huge advantage on the ground. And in a situation like that, how do you feel confident on either side? You can't feel confident on Rodrigues because you know he's outgunned big time in a kickboxing match. And you can't feel confident in Petrosyan because you know if Rodrigues comes in with a grappling heavy game plan, he's completely screwed on the ground. So this is a very difficult one. Again, in situations like this where both guys have got big weaknesses that the other can exploit, I think it's always a dog or pass situation because the underdog is giving you the slightly better risk to reward ratio. But impossible to feel confident on either one of these guys. No matter how much you know about MMA, no matter how much research you do, I think you're kind of kidding yourself if you feel confident in either one of these fighters. It's impossible to call, but I am so looking forward to seeing how this one plays out on Saturday night. So I hope you found this breakdown video useful, and I hope you have a great weekend, a great week till we talk this time next week when I drop next week's breakdown video. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already and hit the like button if you like these breakdown videos. Consider checking out my website, MMABettingTips.com. You'll love it there. You You get to talk to me every day in the VIP chat room. What's there not to love about that? Instead of listening to me bend your ears in these long fucking rambling videos, I could fucking burn your eyeballs with my fucking rants in the chat room as well. So anyway, I'm rambling now. Let's wrap this shit up. Have a great weekend. I hope you make a lot of money. God bless. Putin, please chill the fuck out. Please, 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 bro. If you're watching this, I know you love MMA. I know Makhachev is your boy. Just chill the fuck out, man. Let's all just be cool with each other. Chill. Let's all get along, you know what I'm saying? Putin, let's just chill, man. Let's relax. Let's be friends. Anyway, have a great weekend. Love you all. Take care, guys. And I will see you in next week's video. Bye.